When people are given the opportunity to take someone else's point of view, walk a mile in someone else's shoes, bias against stigmatized groups is reduced. Our guest is a clinical sports cardiologist who is passionate about addressing health disparities and implicit bias. And he and his startup team, that's right, like being a cardiologist isn't enough. Let's go ahead and start a business. They're integrating virtual reality into DEI training to end implicit bias by helping folks not just learn about bias, right, in the training, but feel what bias is like. Let's talk about a future without bias. Stay tuned for the Startup Life Live Show. Let's glow, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And oh my gosh, you startup founders showing off out there, getting up every day, and still, no matter what happens, pursuing your dreams, persevering, really bringing on that resilience and tenacity you need to succeed. I am so grateful for all that you do to bring your vision and mission to the world. And I'm super grateful you carved out time to tune into the Startup Life Live Show because we talk about all the things that can help you and your business do better, but especially how you can do better. And as you do better, that's right, your startup does better. And I want to just say a quick yay, hi to all the viewers out there, live and replay. Thank you for tuning in. And podcast listeners, you know how much I love your presence. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For those of you who are tuning in via video, please be sure to give the video a like, or here on YouTube, a thumbs up. And if you are on YouTube, a subscribe would be a wonderful way to help me reach more founders. Thank you, thank you. And if you want to get a post about each time I have a guest on the show, which is on Tuesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. ET, please join the Startup Life Live group. This is a meetup group where you get the deep dive on each guest I have on the show. And you never know, there may be a guest that is in your industry that can help add value to your startup journey and your founder journey. Just a quick shout out to one of my favorite companies. It's Scroobius, Scroobius.com, Scroobious. And if you are fundraising any kind of funds, please go check out Scroobius because it's a human first fundraising experience. Use Ande15 at checkout. Look, they have the best founder peer support group there. It's like $20 a month to get all the training you need to have the best pitch deck for your startup, plus talk to other founders. Go over there, check it out. It's amazing. And female founded by Allison Byers, who you must follow on Twitter and LinkedIn, everywhere she glows. She's an incredible advocate for diverse founders. And are you thinking about getting certified as a woman-owned business? Well, I hope you reach out and get some help from yours truly, because getting certified through WeBank is not an easy process, but you don't want to leave money on the table either, because there are supplier diversity programs out there specifically for women, government contracts, corporate contracts that are looking specifically for female founders. But that application can be a bit challenging, so feel free to reach out to me, Ande at AndeLyons.com, or click the link in the show notes so you can watch the video. I can help you fill out that pesky application. I don't want that to keep you from getting certified as a woman-owned business by the gold standard of certification platforms, WeBank, Women's Business Enterprise National Council. All right, so I do have a little bit of Andelicious advice I want to share with you today. Let me just pop that up there. That's right, it's Andelicious advice time. And here's what I hear so often from founders is, I really should be further along. Says who? All right, that is judging yourself way too harshly. So I'm going to ask you to try measuring success by looking at the progress you have made from yesterday, from a month ago, quarter, last year. Come on. Every tiny bit step forward is progress, and that is success for you and your business. Take all the wins, no matter how small they are, and celebrate them. That's right. Even if you have to get the maracas out, celebrate. Give yourself an atta girl, atta guy for doing so well, okay? All right. Let me introduce you to our wonderful guest, because I got to tell you, this man is pure deliciousness. It is Dr. Aubrey Grant. He's the co-founder and chief equity officer of Equity Commons, where he and the team are integrating a unique blend of cross-disciplinary research, cutting-edge technology, and established discussion-based learning to bring organizations highly effective and engaging approaches to address the complexities of implicit bias. He's also, folks, a clinical sports cardiologist right here in Boston at Harvard University, Mass General, and he is dedicated and passionate about investigating health disparities, which we know there's an abundance of, and ending implicit bias. Oh my gosh, let's bring him into the room, the one and only Dr. Aubrey Grant. And clappers. I got everything happening today.
Andy, so good to see you. I'm great. So good to see you. Thank you for that.
It's so good to see you. And you know who? One of my favorite people in the world introduced us, Whitney E. Grant. No, Whitney E. White. There we go. I got Grant in there. She is phenomenal, folks. If you're not connected with her, go hop on LinkedIn. How did you and Whitney meet?
Yeah, so the story is amazing. So Whitney and I actually we've known each other for almost upwards to a decade at this point. But we went to undergrad together at Davidson College, a small liberal arts school in North Carolina, and that's where we first initially met. And she was actually my big sib, helping me. She's a couple of years older than me, and so she helped me sort of adjust to college life. And we've just remained really really close friends. Our relationship has we're friends, we are colleagues, we work together. She motivates me, she supports me. I do my best to support her as well, and she that relationship has just spoke wonders to the growth of myself.
Well, folks, Whitney is a phenomenal, what you would call an executive coach. She really helps you be the best you can be and bring your best out and forward into the world. But she also has this really great ability to help you with your time. And when I had her on the show a few years ago, she was telling me about how to let go of things on my to-do list. I said, well, what about, can I just put them over to the side here? And she's like, no, Andy, let them go.
Yeah, I actually went through her course as well, Take Back Your Time. And I want to give a plug for that as well. I mean, that's such an amazing course to really allow you to hone in and focus on the things that you want to do and that you're passionate about. So that was an amazing course.
Exactly. It's called HBU, folks, your highest and best use, right?
Absolutely.
It's so hard, especially when it's like a pesky detail that you might feel good for getting done,
yeah.
But it isn't in your highest and best use. And speaking of phenomenal highest and best use of your time, look who's in the room today with us. It's goddess Mia Voss. And you know what happens when Mia Voss is in the room. That's right. I got to bring it up, folks. Tune in to her phenomenal podcast, Shit We Don't Talk About, because nobody brings these tough topics to light like Mia Voss does. We call her the voice here at our house because it's just pure deliciousness listening to her address really tough topics. So thank you, Mia, for swinging by and saying hi. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about how you've got this incredible career. I mean, for me to think about everything someone goes through to become an MD, like right there, it's a win. And then, and you have this stellar career as a clinical sports cardiologist. What called you to say, no, this is not enough. I need to do more. I need to found a company with some great team members. How did that happen, Dr. Grant?
When I think about it, it's all about passion, and it's the things that's within me. When I look back on my parents, my mom, she was an amazing social worker, and my dad, he was actually an entrepreneur himself, and he was just always so curious about life. And coupling the two of them together, I like to think I took a lot of the good from the two of them, and I'm just so passionate about people, but also curious about asking questions, and so that really pushed me to go into medicine. And then, unfortunately, I had a grandmother who passed away of, a somewhat preventable medical issue. And there was a lot of, I would say, distrust in medicine. And she often said that you would be the only doctor that I would allow how to take care of me. And that really motivated me to say, there's so much good that I could do for my community and helping people of color, women, marginalized communities in feeling better about taking care of their health. And then beyond that, my relationship with Whitney has really, really transformed my career now. And so, I did my residency in internal medicine, and it was a fantastic residency at Emory University. And I worked at the big hospital, it's Grady Memorial Hospital. This amazing county safety net hospital, takes care of patients from all different types of walks of life. But my background, really sort of made me aware of a lot of the ways that implicit bias negatively affects the way we take care of patients in our day to day. And so I did my senior grant rounds on implicit bias and presented some of the data about, the ways that it comes to play and, several different subspecialties, cardiology being one of them. And I left that talk and everyone came up to me and said, okay, we believe you, implicit bias is a problem, but what can we do about it? And there was just no solutions that were available at the time. And so, coming up and speaking with Brittany about this issue, we created this brain trust. And at that point in time, she was actually funding an innovation fund at Davidson. And we partnered with Leslie, who was our CTO, our Chief Technology Officer. And then that's how Equity Commons was sort of born. And it's really this amazing serendipitous story about, maintaining your networks, speaking your truth, going the things you're passionate about, that brought us to Equity Commons.
And I really like that part, doing things that you're passionate about. Founders, you cannot be into this for the money alone, right? You have to be passionate about the purpose. Can you share a little bit about that data for folks who may not understand the health disparities that we have in the US for people of color for all the right reasons, why they would be distrustful about getting the proper care? We certainly know it in women's health for women of color. What is some of the data that you can share with folks before we dive deeper into Equity Commons?
Yeah. I mean, so I'm a cardiologist, so I will speak from that stance. And so cardiovascular disease is, thought to be the number one killer of people of color in this country, period. And a lot of cardiovascular disease is relatable to preventative conditions, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, metabolic disease, et cetera. We could just do so much good if there was an ounce of prevention, because what I've seen is that once you have cardiovascular disease, you're really maintained on a lot of different medications. It's back and forth visits to see the cardiologist, to see myself, and it can really be a debilitating condition to manage. And unfortunately, a lot of people of color, marginalized communities suffer from these conditions. What I have found is that there's a lot of distrust in that relationship, that patient-provider relationship needs some mending on both sides. Physicians need to meet patients where they're at, and patients need to be be more vocal and sort of speaking their needs to their providers. Yeah. I talk a lot about implicit bias, and we've known about implicit bias and its effect on healthcare for about 30 years now. The data dates back, for quite some time, but there just hasn't been any major solutions in adjusting this, in our healthcare system.
And I love the fact that you came together with a group of folks equally committed to solving this problem. And the best companies come out of a problem that people look around and say, gosh darn it, no one's solving this. I may as well step up, or we may as well step up because we're tired of it.
Exactly. I mean, that's what it was. It was born out of, noticing a problem, recognizing it, and then talking with, creating this brain trust of people who we can bounce ideas off of and develop this product that we love.
Absolutely. And had you had any exposure to entrepreneurship growing up, or is this your first time dipping your toe into what? I own a business? What the heck was I thinking?
So interestingly enough, my dad is an entrepreneur, and
hold on, shout out to Dad, yay!
And my dad and I, we're super close, and I watched him be an entrepreneur, and he was a single employee entrepreneur, and he did that for quite some time, and I saw a lot of the benefits, and I saw a lot of his struggles too, from being an entrepreneur and the tough road that you go through when doing that. And actually, having talked with him about his journey through entrepreneurship, I come to learn that his grandparents were entrepreneurs as well. And many people on that side of the family were also in their communities in North Carolina, were also entrepreneurs. And so, I sort of came into this route serendipitously, but come to find out there's this family history of entrepreneurship.
It's in your DNA, Dr. Grant.
Just trying to meet people's needs and, recognizing where the problems are and really focusing specific solution to that.
Absolutely. So what's fascinating to me is I love that you've brought in this whole virtual reality to blend in, to understand, to really be able to feel like you're walking through someone's shoes, because we can study it intellectually, but until we get it right here in the heart, it's hard to be as empathetic as we could be, or less afraid, because that whole us versus them mentality. How did you and the team decide that virtual reality was going to be your technology to use? Who in the team came up with that big, bright idea?
So, so we talked a lot about Whitney, and I mentioned myself, but there's another person on the team who has just been a blessing and a joy to work with. Her name is Leslie Alvarado, and she's our Chief Technology Officer for Equity Commons. And wow, when I tell you, this woman is just incredible. We all went to Davidson College, and the highlight I will say from that is we have this liberal arts background.
Yes.
And that being said, we're all able to we wear several different hats in the organization. And that has been really, really helpful, allowing us to create these checks and balance systems. And so our process is we're able to create these scripts and these scenarios that we want to bring to life. And Leslie is able to animate them and build these sort of dynamic worlds in virtual reality that really allow people to, experience that firsthand. And when I tell you they're so powerful, every person that puts on the headset, after the experience, they're like, oh my God, this has been such a power. You can feel it, when you're coming out, you're having the palpitations, when you're going through that experience. And it's just so, so powerful.
But how did Leslie get involved? So I should say, Leslie, get on the show. I got to find out how you got involved with VR,
Yes,
because that's not.
she was doing she also went to Davidson, and she was doing this innovation fund while she was on this innovation fund while she was at Davidson as well, looking at virtual reality. And she actually created a world where she was allowing people to experience what it's like to be a Black person, navigating a predominantly white institution. And that was one of her projects, while she was a student at Davidson. And so, right, I mean, this incredible person, building this while also being a student. And so Leslie, Whitney, and myself, we came together in 2016 to birth Equity Commons.
Can I just do a double chef's kiss? Mwah, mwah, for this think tank. And you came together in 2016, which means you've been thinking about this for a while.
It has been a journey.
When did you decide, okay, this is going to be the name, this is how we're going to file it, LLC or Inc. When did that happen?
Yeah, it's been a journey. It has truly been a journey. And we've been building the business. And so that's one of the pieces of advice that I will give is one thing that I have loved about our organization is that we are constantly moving forward. We've had setbacks, but we don't allow them to really detract us from our end goal of ending implicit bias and building a world without bias. And so although, it's been a process and it's been a journey, one thing that we've been able to do is we've been very lean. We've been able to adapt ourselves to really sort of highlight, adaptations that we get from feedback from our product. And so this journey from 2016 to now has been really sort of an eye-opening experience of what it's truly like to be an entrepreneur, to have an idea of something bigger than yourself and something big that you want to get to the world, but being flexible enough to be able to adapt it to meet people's needs.
Right. And your own needs, because if you came up with this idea in 2016, and today is March, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, March 17th, 2023, you sat with it for a while. And I bring that up, Dr. Grant, because so many founders, as I said in the beginning under the Andelicious advice segment, that, oh my gosh, I feel I should be so much further along. Who says you can be thoughtful? You've got a life, this whole hit the ground running hustle culture may work for a segment of the population, of course, but it sounds like you guys gave it a lot of thought. You gathered your data. How do we want to bring this? We need to do some beta testing, et cetera.
Yeah, we tried to be as thorough as possible. I come from an academic perspective, and so doing the groundwork, looking at the literature, assessing what is already out there, learning what the conversation of implicit bias looks like already, looking where the field is, talking to other people, sociologists who are doing actually the groundwork of implicit bias currently. That takes time and that takes effort, to sort of build that base. And what I can say is we have an amazing, solid base from what our company is built on.
Right. And I'm going to bring up the website in just a second, folks, but I do want to do a shout out to our loyal fan, Brent from Ottawa, Canada, who really supports diversity, especially with our disabled community, whether that's neurodiversity in disability, the hidden disabilities we don't always see because people are so great at masking their challenges, to folks who are obviously physically disabled. They deserve a seat at the table, and disability 110% is innovation. When you think about the things that you have to figure out because accessibility is not there, let me tell you, you become very innovative. So thank you, Brent, for stopping by and saying hi. So I'm going to pop the website into the room here. And folks, I just want you, because we're going to dive into how they put together their MVP, how they did their beta, who did they talk to, what did they learn, customer segment, all the good stuff. But let's first scroll through the website. What's happening here? And I'll
Yeah,
scroll
so
on down.
thanks for bringing up this. This is our product side of our website, and this sort of just highlights what the headsets actually look like. And so, you can get a similar experience like this when you're actually doing our training. We put the headset on the person going through experience, and you're transformed. You're in a different world. You're in a different space, and we create these scenarios that really focus on sensory immersion and perspective taking that really allow the people to experience what it's like to be that person navigating an implicit bias scenario.
All right. And for the podcast listeners, we're looking at three people sitting back looking like they're having a hell of a good time. They've got these really cool virtual reality headsets on. And the tagline is they're not just learning it, they're feeling it. And then
Yeah,
we're
and that's what
scrolling.
we really focus on. We really focus on experiential learning, and so the sensory immersion aspect is critical to meeting the needs of implicit bias. There's a lot of trainings that we've seen, and this comes from the background research that we've done prior to this. Is they're traditional lecture style trainings, and while those are important, what we have found is that experiential learning, feeling the sensation of going through the case scenario just really transforms people's understanding, and we're really sort of focusing on radical empathy development with this virtual reality.
And then you go into perspective taking.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah, it's all about feeling what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. And so we actually just created this new scenario, which is fantastic. It's an amazing scenario where you get to be a trans woman presenting to a cardiologist's office, and you get to understand what all of those sort of dynamics and hidden biases look like. For example, being misgendered, using having someone use your dead name. A lot of times the clinicians are not as comfortable dealing with hormone replacement therapy, et cetera. And so, going through that experience as a trans person, you get to be the perspective of that person. You come out of the experience and you truly, truly understand. And our what we have found is that perspective taking really transforms, how people feel going forward in the practice.
Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. I mean, and as you said, radical empathy
Yeah,
happens
yeah, it's
because,
dramatic. I mean, Andy, I will tell you one story. So one of the
yeah.
other cases that we've developed, this was one of our earlier studies, was a person of color, Black woman of color, presenting to the emergency department with chest pain. Okay, and so there's a lot of data that suggests that this particular cohort, Black women, oftentimes are not listened to when they're presenting, in high volume centers. In particular, cardiovascular disease can often be missed because of our implicit biases. And so the case we developed actually was from a real life case that I took care of when I was working overnight in the cardiac ICU. And so this woman came in and she presented, and she was having chest pain. Unfortunately, she was also experiencing homelessness at the time, and she was well known to the emergency department. That often triggers a lot of biases in itself. And she was telling her providers that she was having chest pain, but it was a busy unit. There was a lot of things going on, and there was a delay in care. And unfortunately, in that delay in care, she ended up suffering a cardiac arrest. Now, she was in the hospital. We were able to resuscitate her. We rushed her to the cath lab. We were able to eventually, fix her heart attack at that time. But that poor outcome, there's a thought that some level of implicit bias led to that delay of care. And when she came to my unit, she told me, I just kept saying over and over again I was having chest pain, but I felt like I wasn't being heard.
Right.
And so we took that, I wrote down everything she said. I wrote down, everything she was telling me, and we brought that to life in virtual reality. And so now people can really experience and have that feeling of being that person.
Well, and as women with color or white like me, I got to tell you, we know what that's about, especially if we're in pain. It
Yeah.
gets poo-pooed. Oh, you're a woman. What do you know about pain? And the health industry. It's just, I've just been watching it for decades. So this is even, so important on so many levels. Let me bring this back up to the screen here. We'll go down to after perspective taking, it's body ownership illusions. What is
Yeah.
that all about?
And so this is actually fantastic, and there's really great data that suggests that the longer you were in the virtual reality headsets, the more likely you were likely to feel like you're that person experiencing, the character in the VR scenario. And it's actually a funny story. Leslie, our chief technology officer, she does a lot of work in virtual reality, and she sort of lives this technology throughout day to day. So the longer that she's in the headset, she oftentimes is like, having some blurring between what's her virtual reality and when she comes out of the headset. So there's really great data that suggests that this is an untapped technology that we can use for experiential learning. And for me, I really, really, really want to encourage people to focus on ways that we can use technology to solve a lot of our issues, because there are so many resources and ways that we could think about using technology as this to meet people's needs.
And also, we know that the virtual, okay, implicit bias, folks, can happen within the color community. So I have a friend, Jessica, who is saying, she's Puerto Rican, and then the bias against, with Dominican Republicans or with Cubans. I mean, there's just, all of this implicit bias that happens among the culture of
Absolutely.
color, or where
Absolutely.
blacks say, oh, well, you're really not black to a Latina,
Yeah.
things like, so we can go even deeper, right?
Totally, totally. And one of the things that we found is oftentimes when you talk about bias, people get a little defensive. There are two types of bias: explicit bias and implicit bias. Explicit is sort of the overt things that we kind of are well aware of, but implicit is the type of bias that everyone carries. I have implicit bias. I'm sure you have some level of biases. We all have it. However, having discussion about that, sometimes people can get defensive. And so
Right.
what we found is that utilizing this technology allows people to, as you're experiencing the bias yourself, it really gets past people's defenses and really creates a safe space for us to have discussion and really sort of move the needle on implicit bias.
You know what this reminds me of? One of my favorite plays that I saw last year was, oh my gosh, A Strange Loop on Broadway. And that was about being a big, black, fat, and queer on Broadway. And I mean, the storyline was, you were howling 1 minute, but the level of empathy you had, because he's just said, because it's the main character and his six awful thoughts.
Yeah.
The other characters were, did you happen to see the
I
Dr.
have
Grant?
not seen it, but I mean, that's the thing that we're tapping into. I mean,
Yeah.
we all are humans, and we like truly believe that virtual reality is capable of developing this radical empathy.
Absolutely. And so, we get so much bias, and when you say radical, like like how long do you have to be in the headset for you to just start going, oh my God, this is
So it's dependent on the person. Our typical scenarios we try to keep around 5 to 7 minutes, and the data suggests that that's the perfect amount of time to really allow you to capitalize on that sensory immersion, that perspective taking, to really focus on the empathy development.
oh my gosh, seriously, anybody
Yeah.
who's been in a DEI training, you know that they last for hours. And you're saying you're going to put a headset on for 7 minutes? I mean, yeah, time and again, but
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
it?
Yeah, and so the one thing that I do love about Equity Commons is our company is very lean, and at this point we are able to we offer lots of different types of trainings for different organizations, really sort of we have an assessment and we meet and we're able to meet your needs based off of what you're telling us. And so, we're able to, oftentimes we come in with a virtual reality experience, but we don't really stop there. And we don't think that 1 5-minute experience is going to completely move the needle on implicit bias in that moment. And so oftentimes we couple this with longitudinal assessment over months, over weeks, to really sort of hone in on the ways that implicit bias has affected your day-to-day life. And we think that with the virtual reality, with some discussion, with sort of having an open platform to people to honestly discuss the way bias is coming into their day-to-day life, that is where you see the work and moving the needle of implicit bias.
Wow. I'm going to bring up their services page, everybody. And it starts off with
Yeah.
training fatigue is real.
And
Hashtag.
particularly training fatigue about implicit bias. I mean, a lot of these DEI stuff, from what people have told to me, it's click boxes on certain modules, it's PowerPoints, and that can be a little bit dry for people. So we really like to get out of the traditional standards for that.
Right. And they can just click a button that says schedule a consultation. Okay, so now everybody knows I love to go into the parts and pieces because this is also how we learn from your wins and missteps as you take your business out, because you can come up with this brilliant idea and proven data, and this really works, but it won't go anywhere unless
Mhm.
somebody takes it on,
Yeah,
purchases.
yeah.
And so talk a little bit about well, first of all, how'd you get the headsets? Because
So
that's a part that's involved.
yeah, absolutely. And from our inception to now, we have been bootstrap funded and self funded, and so a lot of that is just personal investment from myself and my other colleagues, and that just is because we are passionate about what we're doing. And this, we hope, is our life's work and the good that we'll be leaving on this planet, because of the work that we're doing.
Legacy
Um,
is everything.
Legacy, yeah, and so we all really, really believe, and I mean, we were all sort of doing this work in silos even before we came together, and so now we're just, that much more powerful having done it, with.
And so I guess Leslie was the one that said we need this model of virtual headsets. And do you source locally or do you get it offshore?
Yeah, so Leslie is our chief technology officer. So she does all of these sort of tech, and the one thing that I really love about Equity Commons is we are so trusting in each other's strengths. And so that is Leslie's strength. I'm doing my best to learn as much as I can about VR and tech and Google Oculus and all the
You're the
different
chief
models.
equity officer. That's
But
enough right there.
equity is my piece, and I am always doing deep diving and learning about the ways equity comes into play. And Whitney is our CEO, and she is an amazing businesswoman, and all of us are sort of trusting in the strengths that we bring to the table, but also being able to work together and check each other is been fantastic as well
Well, I'm
too.
still going to keep asking that question. So do you source locally for the head? Because I'm trying to understand the process. So when you onboard someone, how does that work?
Yeah, so we have Google Oculus headsets, and
Okay.
so we have them in our, in our possession. And typically, if say you were consulting with us and you say, "Hey, we want to come to you want Equity Commons to come and work with your organization," we will come and we will bring the headsets on site, and we will do the training on site with you, sort of, and have a whole timeline where we can do DEI discussion about implicit bias.
Right. And what kind of corporations, because this is a B2B business, what kind of
Yeah.
corporations are you going to reach first? Like who's your favorite customer segment for launching?
And so it's so interesting that you asked me, Amy, because I come from an academic mindset, right? And so I've been, I did my residency at Emory, fellowship at Georgetown. Now I'm at
What do you mean sales? What do you mean biz
right.
dev? Come on.
And so I initially we started this thinking about specifically just focusing on healthcare. But what we have found that every person that we show the virtual reality to is so fascinated and so sort of amazed by the technology that we've even branched out to other different sects of business. And so we're in corporate HR right now. We're doing hospitality trainings right now as well. And the feedback has all been the same, that this is so powerful, and an amazing technology use of technology to helping our
Right. Oh
different
my
communities.
gosh. Thank you for sharing that. And I really love what you said about letting everybody bring their brilliance and trusting them completely. Leslie, you've got that. Whitney, you've got that. I've got this.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful. And then you talked about you've been bootstrapping along the way. Do you think you'll need to raise capital outside of the business?
I think there have been pros and cons and things that we've discussed as a team.
Yeah.
And being sort of lean and bootstrapping our finances at this point has allowed us to be very malleable in how we manage our day to day. And we are our own bosses, and we love that.
Well, I got to tell you, when you can bootstrap, and I call it the MailChimp
Yeah,
growth pattern. So MailChimp never took a dime. They bootstrapped it all and they took their time building the
yeah,
business, much to the dismay of many a VC, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, but they were able to maintain 100% ownership. So
yeah,
when they went public for 12 billion or purchased by 12 billion, I think from Quicken, they're now able to move their money into other places that they
yeah,
are
yeah,
passionate about.
yeah.
And I think that if you can afford folks to not have to raise capital, I mean, look, for many of us, any that family and friends round, I mean, people I know are probably borrowing $20 from you to do and get through the day and then sleeping on the couch in your home. But for those of you who can reach out to family and friends for some money, or finding those individuals who have the financial means and are passionate about what you're doing to bring some funds into your business. It really is what Dr. Grant is saying. It is a better way, and you might have to move slowly to grow the business. Now, also the fact that you still, I mean, you just came from seeing patients. Okay,
Yeah,
you're still
yeah,
in your scrubs. And everybody see this, Dr. Grant is still in his scrubs
yeah,
for our polo, for our podcast listeners.
yeah,
And so, I mean, Whitney still has her jam going.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
Leslie, is she full-time in the business or?
Leslie works full time, but I
Okay,
will say it's passion, right? And at this point in my life, I have, I work full time, but I do have, the free time to be able to commit to Equity Commons. And we made a commitment as a team that we would invest that time capital as well into making sure that we continue to move the business forward. Oftentimes, we are, having to meet deadlines, and deadlines come up quickly. But we are all still buying into the mentality that we are going to get it done, and we
right,
are going to commit to Equity Commons just to make this happen. Just because we're all so passionate about it, and we take
right.
a personal responsibility for the growth of the organization.
Yeah, and I ask that because people can poo-poo side hustles, right? But this is this is a very serious pulled together side hustle. And folks, you can launch a really impactful business knowing that you could bring on other team members, right, Dr.
Yes.
Grant, as it
Yes.
starts to explode, right, and
Yes.
start to grow, that can handle all of the things that you have put into place because you put in the culture, you put in all the necessary ingredients, and you
Mhm.
can absolutely onboard talent that is ready to help a business grow.
Mm. And I will
I'm
highlight that too, Andy. We just actually hired two innovation interns, John and Shemana, and they are fantastic about helping us continue to push in the right direction. And it's really a team effort. The one thing that I will add on top of that is I don't want to leave my clinical practice because my clinical practice informs the types of scenarios that we are building into Equity Commons. And so it's really a funnel into the work that we're actually doing with ending implicit bias.
And I want to say hi to Peter from London. Hey, Peter. He's tuning in from Old London. He's saying, AI tech startup is on my bucket list. Look how this works. This is to help end implicit bias. It's virtual reality headsets that they're wearing, Peter. And it's just how it, and I don't know if you caught it earlier in the show, but it's a way to help people get an understanding of bias much faster and on a deeper empathetic level. And Dr. Grant and his team are all about ending implicit bias. And I got to tell you, that's a big, hairy, audacious goal
Yeah,
to
I
take
mean,
on.
but why not, right?
Right, exactly, why not? And so what does, I should say, success look like for you? You guys have been at this for 6+ years talking, you've kind of so far along, and thank you, Leslie, and thank you, Whitney, for all that you've done, and you've onboarded the interns and what they're doing. Who's ever doing the social media, thank you. Appreciate that. Um, so, what does success look like for the team? And I say that every show, Dr. Grant, because founders, whether this is your first time tuning in or multiple times, you know how important it is to decide what does success look like for you. And if that means you're going to continue driving a Toyota and be happy and feed your family and change the generational wealth, you are clappers right here. Amazing. But if you want to go national, regional, global, that's good too. But you have to know what success looks like for you. I don't want you crying in a Ferrari because you're so miserable. I want you to be happy. What about you, Dr. Grant? What does the team say about success?
Yeah, and this is such an interesting concept, and I've been doing some self-reflecting on this lately myself too. But I think, I mean, we want to end implicit bias, and it's a lofty goal, and we want to get this technology and this training in its hands as many people as possible. Equity is what we're after,
Yeah.
and that's what motivates all of us. I think personally, we were chatting earlier today. Um, I am in the academic space currently, and there are these certain, boxes that oftentimes, academics and clinicians fit in, whether you're doing research, whether you're a clinical person or whatever. But what I've come to find is that I don't necessarily fit in any of these boxes. I have interests that are oftentimes outside of these boxes, and I have passions that, haven't are on the road less traveled. And what I can say is that I've had mentors that have really encouraged me to explore them in ways that are very untraditional. And that has meant the world to me. And so with that, I have had to redefine what success means to me. Traditionally in academics, it's all about, your publications and, the patients that you see. But I think we can have so much impact by exploring what we're passionate about, and using technology to have impact on people's lives to affect the way that implicit bias works is an amazing. If that's what I contribute to this space, that I would be so happy with that. So
Um,
really redefining that success for me has been an amazing exercise.
oh my gosh, I'm having an delicious moment, everybody. You can be working full time and still be living your passion, not necessarily at where you're working. I mean, that can be fulfilling in one way and you can be successful at it, but to explore other passions that you have, you
Yeah.
can make the time for that. You can find the energy to carve out and do the personal development work. Launching a business is the best personal development program out there. And so this measuring of success, it's the impact that you all are going to have. And
Absolutely,
that's going
absolutely.
to take time to see. What kind of feedback do you get from your customers with their DEI training? What have you heard so far?
So, Andy, I will tell you, this has been the most rewarding part of this. Is everyone loves it. I mean, it's just amazing. We started off slow, and so we really wanted to make sure that our product was thoughtful, and our process reflects that. So we create these scripts and we bring it to life in the virtual reality. But even beyond that, we have the scripts authenticated by the persons that are, particularly marginalized by implicit bias. So, in particular, for this transgender scenario, we had a transgender person to actually authenticate the script just to let us know that this was actually a real life thing that is going on. And then additionally, a lot of our voice actors that we cast come from these marginalized communities. And so we truly believe in the authenticity of the experiences that we're offering to people. And in that, and with that authenticity, we have had amazing feedback. We just came back from this conference where we were able to train 150 people on implicit bias in a transgender person. And I had the fortunate opportunity to chat with all these people as they came out of the headset. And the most common thing I heard from people after the experience was, wow, that was amazing and eye-opening. And I just want to do my best to get that in the hands of as many people as possible.
Oh my gosh, it has to be so rewarding. And you said something about the voice folks. So you do hire trained voice experts and what about the visual part? Like, how does that all happen?
Yeah, so I'll take you exactly through our process. So, we start with a concept, right? And so, for example, a Black woman presenting with chest pain, we had this concept and we wanted to bring that to life. And so I created a script, I had that authenticated with other cardiologists, with other Black women who have had the experience with healthcare, and say, hey, is this a real life thing? Does this sound, truly normal? Does this sound authentic? And people corroborated the stories, unfortunately. And then with that, we brought the script to life with voice actors. And so we had auditions, we had, sessions where we were practicing the script, and the voice actors ultimately were able to deliver powerful, voice acting that brought the script to life. And then beyond all of that, Leslie, who I cannot speak more highly about, she created this virtual reality world that, really authenticates the voice with the script and the experience. And then we layer on sounds of palpitations, and then, we layer on the sounds of the hospital, and it's this full 3D world where you're having the audio and it's just
And your heart starts to pound because it's happening to you.
it's happening to you, and you really can notice that your heart is you're having these same symptoms, and it's just so powerful, Andy.
Oh my gosh. And then, boy, the level of empathy. Hi, Dr. Alyssa. So good to see you. And yes, yeah, I'm so glad you got it. I'll just pop up the website again so you can see how they do the training. They have these wonderful virtual reality headsets on, and in there, they are experiencing someone who is not like them. And so that they can feel what implicit bias looks like. And once you feel, I mean, we are human and we know, you see any disaster happening, nobody thinks about the color, race, nothing. Transgender, if that transgender woman is helping someone survive, that's all they care about. You human just saved me human. Thank you. And that's where we want to get, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating. From my learning and reading the literature, implicit bias is really tough to capture. It's tough to sort of put, data behind implicit bias and saying this is actually, it's tough to measure. It's one of these things that you know it when you see it, and when you feel it, that is when you know what bias is. And having people sort of walk out of our experience knowing what bias is so powerful.
Yes, and I agree 100%, Dr. Alyssa. She says that's terrific. Great concept because talking about it doesn't get us anywhere clearly. Feeling will make another difference. And because it's virtual reality, right, Dr. Alyssa, you're going to see it and feel it experientially. I mean, you can watch a movie on 2D, so to speak, and go, "Oh yeah, oh I feel that," and get the tissues out. But 3D puts you in the seat and you're like, what?
Yeah, and once you experience it for yourself, it's really hard to go back to not understanding, what that is like. And so, I mean, there are so many, applications for implicit. I mean, we want to take this to, education, police. I mean, banking. There's so many, other
Oh,
industries.
ambulance drivers,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
everybody.
I mean, healthcare, I think has been, our start, and we've got a lot of traction in healthcare. But I mean, bias just exists in so many avenues in the world. And once you start to think about your bias, and once you see it and reflect on it, you just see it everywhere. And we're just trying to create a better world for people.
Oh my gosh, that could be a stitch that on a pillow moment, everybody. Once you see it, you can, but actually feel it at the same time. That's how you do it. So, Dr. Alyssa is asking this question. What about the experience of white patients who reject doctors of color? That's the reverse bias.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that happens. That actually happened to me this morning.
Oh,
Actually,
no way. Get out
yeah, that
of town.
actually happens to me this morning. Yeah, so that's a little bit true.
Well, oh, excuse me, orderly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that is so hard. And so,
It
but
happens. It happens.
this
Yeah.
can work in every way, right?
Yeah, I mean, and not only do we want to have it where the clinicians can use virtual reality, but patients can use virtual reality too. One way that we think about it too is that if we are expanding virtual reality for our patients, then they can learn what it's like to be a better advocate for themselves and sort of to speak up and sort of really understand that implicit bias is not acceptable, and that you need to be voicing this out to people. And clearly from that scenario as well, as a patient who is not trusting of a person of color doctor, you could experience what it's like to be that Black physician or that woman physician and not have your patient
Oh my
acknowledge.
gosh. Just reading something about, a bunch of folks in NASA, and this one person said to this woman, you really need to read Dr. McCartney's information for you to really understand aerodynamics. And she goes, excuse me, I am Dr. McCartney. I'm amazed she didn't go whack whack with a bitch slap on
Yeah,
that
I mean,
one.
it happens. It happens all the time, and I mean, I could tell you endless stories of the ways. And then, and unfortunately, I am familiar with a lot of, people of color physicians, and it's pervasive. I mean, they tell me similar stories of how this has happened to them as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so you've been, an entrepreneur now, because once you step into that role, you're never going back. You're understanding this particular journey. Tell us a little bit how because I mean, you've already done a ton of amazing things, becoming a doctor, getting trained in sports, clinical sports cardiology, everything. How has this journey as an entrepreneur kind of shifted you, both
Yeah.
personally and professionally?
Yeah, I mean, Andy, when I tell you, like, my goals have shifted, the way I define success has shifted, the impact that I think I can have on the world has shifted. I will never leave clinical med. I love being at the bedside, and it's the empath in me. It's my mom in me. It's the social worker in me that really makes me feel with people. And I love being at the bedside, taking care of people. But being an entrepreneur has really raised my eyes and showed me that you can have so much impact outside of the walls of, an individual, clinical interaction. And it's something that, now that I'm here, I'm loving it. And the one thing that I will say too, having partners that really understand the journey, that are, not only, amazing people, but are just well-rounded thinkers, has really made this journey just, as pleasurable as possible. And so, we have our meetings, and I love showing up to our meetings. I'm excited to get on the call and see what Whitney has in store, see what Leslie has created, just because I know it's going to be phenomenal.
Oh,
Surrounding yourself with amazing people, I cannot highlight that more.
oh my gosh, I love that. And hi, Dr. Well, I don't know how to say that last
So
name. Dr.
this is Modele Dr. Oguni, and so this is my mentor. And when I tell you about advocacy and mentorship, this woman has literally been the best mentor and advocate I have ever met in my life.
Oh,
She
Dr.
has put me-
Guinea?
Dr. Oguni, she has put me in
Guni.
spaces that I would never could have dreamt that I would belong in. And she has been such an amazing advocate for everything. And so I want to give her roses and a shout out to her, because she truly is a leader and an advocate and an expert. She is fantastic.
Thank you, Dr. Oguni. I'm going to have to practice that for a little while. I am a phonetic learner. I apologize, not a visual. And this is what she's saying of those who are listening to this conversation. She's saying, I had the opportunity to do this training, and I concur with Dr. Grant. The virtual experience was wow. Thank you for your leadership in advancing health equity through innovative virtual reality. And, Dr. O, I'm going to just say thank you for adding wind to this team's sails, specifically to Dr. Grant's sails. We all need that. And we all need someone who believes in our ability to win. Because when we have someone who just looks at us and just says, you've got this, we can move mountains to make our dreams come true. So Dr. O, thank you for that as well. And then Kevin is tuned in, and Kevin's got the Higher Foundation, folks. And you talk about ending implicit bias for anybody who has suffered from and lives with substance abuse syndrome. You're going to get so slammed. I don't care if you're an MD, an attorney, an actor, whatever. That's really hard to end that. So his question is, what an amazing role model you can be for young people of color, demonstrating that they too can be as successful as anyone else. It's beautiful. And Kevin, how great would this be for DEI training? Because there comes with a huge bias. If someone had, alcoholism or any other kind of substance abuse, right, Dr. Grant?
Absolutely. I mean, literally, the applications of this technology for radical empathy are endless. And the fortunate part about Equity Commons is that we can really create whatever scenario that organization needs. And so, whether it be sickle cell, whether it be alcohol use disorder, whether it be DE&I trainings, whether it be corporate HR, like we literally can meet whatever needs. And I love that aspect of our organization.
And I think, Peter, you're absolutely right. Start living your purpose, 3D activation. It can also go a little squirrel off that way, but it's so good. And once you start living it, you can take it on, and the level of empathy. And those of you who have birthed a baby, that first time pushing that baby out, nobody could prepare you for that. And not that I want you to have a virtual reality moment, but you have a deep empathy when you look at another woman going, oh boy, you birthed that baby. Maybe we should have VR for men so they understand what labor is like.
That's what I'm saying, Andy, and that's what I love about this, is that the ideas they can flow so easily, and that's what it's all about.
All the women tuning in, can I get a hell yes? Yes.
I love it.
Because those TV, whenever we see it on TV, it's just not enough. And in real life, the men feel helpless, but they are also clueless on that. But anyway, I digress. Dr. Grant, this has been such a wonderful conversation. And I love that Dr. O showed up, so we know who added wind to your sails, because that's always a great conversation.
I can't highlight that enough. I mean, it's the people, right? And so, I have a mother and a father who are amazing. I have surrounded myself with Whitney and Leslie, who are through the moon, just all stars. Dr. Oguni she breathes so much life into my ideas and my vision. And she's told me that, I can redefine what success is for me. And so all of that has sort of built and created Equity Commons to be what it is today. And so, that support has really been monumental.
Well, and folks listening in, Dr. O has said, Dr. Grant is a superstar, as we say here in Boston, superstar. Excited for the future of Equity Commons. I am too. And Dr. I can't wait to go down the street. I mean, really, Dr. Grant is only like 30 minutes that way
Yeah,
from me. I can't wait to go down and hug him in real life, or as we say
exactly.
here, hurl in real life.
Awesome. Yes.
Um, what final words would you like to share with the audience? Like, what hard thing are you working on that we could help you with, or any calls to action that we can do to help move Equity Commons forward in the world?
Yeah, I know. I think I just want to leave here today and really encourage people to live in their purpose and, tap into, the life experiences that you've had, the things that, keep you up late at night, the things that motivate you when there's no money coming in, the work that you would do for free, to tap into that and sort of really sort of lean heavy into what do you want to leave on this planet. And then beyond that, surround yourself with amazing, talented individuals, and continue to be open and as lean as possible to develop and to reshape your product and to really sort of meet the needs of the people, because that's what it's all about. It's meeting people's needs to making the world a better place. And for us, we want to end implicit bias.
Oh my gosh. Again, and we want to end implicit bias. I mean, as if we want to end, you know, bad haircuts. I mean,
Yeah.
no, this is like really big. This is
Yeah,
so
it's huge, but why not, Andy? Why not?
why not? And why not you? And we have a LinkedIn user here. Please pop your name in, because sometimes LinkedIn doesn't grab it. She says, thank you. Or he says, thank you, Andy Lyons, MBA, for such an amazing interview with Dr. Grant about his journey and impactful work with Equity Commons. Thank you, whoever you are. And thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so happy that you did that. And then here's Allison. Dr. Grant, you are wonderful, inspirational capital.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you,
I
Allison.
agree. And everybody, you know what happens when Allison swings by? You know, I got to pop this baby right back up here. She's the founder of Scrupia. So if you're raising capital and you want to get that pitch deck pulled together and get founder support, this is an amazing organization. Hop on over to Scroobius, SCROOBIOUS.com to learn more. Allison, thanks for swinging by, doll. Dr. Grant, seriously, a phenomenal conversation. I'm cheering wildly for you and the team. I'm going to pop you in the green room to wrap up this conversation. I'm so grateful you carved out time. Talk about a busy schedule. I mean, running from patients, and you had some nighttime patients and emergencies you had to deal with. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your vision, your purpose, your passion, and your brilliance with the Startup Life Live community today.
Thank you so much, Andy. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh my gosh, everyone. Like Allison said, talk about inspirational capital. Yes, we are inspired to keep glowing, and for such a lofty and important goal, ending implicit bias. It's so important. And speaking of lofty goals and helping everybody, wait to hear who's going to be on the show next. And it's Monday, March 21st at 12 p.m. We're chatting with Tia Gordon. She's the co-founder and COO of It's Electric. And this is a clean tech startup bringing EV charging to the millions of drivers who cannot charge at home as they park their cars on city streets. It's Electric does this by overcoming city electrical grid limitations by using energy from buildings to power a publicly accessible curbside charger. Oh my gosh, this is such a cool technology. And in return, they share revenue with the property owners. And it's a collaborative economic model that allows for EV chargers to be deployed within cities at speed and scale. Oh, I hope you can tune in. And how do you know whenever I have a new show? Come on, you join the Startup Life Live meetup group so you can get a post, an alert whenever I post a new show. All right, folks, until next time. Please, we learned from Dr. Grant today, and in this founder journey, you've got to remember you're braver than you believe, yeah, stronger than you seem, and as we say here in Boston, you're wicked smarter than you think, for reals. Until next time, I'm wishing you a happy St. Patty's Day and a delicious day everywhere you glow. Thank you for getting up every day and moving your startup forward. I am cheering wildly for you from Boston. Mwah, everyone.